Good evening and welcome to Resource PNG. Tonight we have a lineup in which we talk to the landowners of Misima Island, find out how the life is after the closure of the mine. We also have an interview with the Managing Director of Octeri Mine Limited, and we also talk to the Marengo Mining Limited, the Managing Director, Mr. Les Emery. First up, here is a story on the Misima mine after its closure. Misima Island lies in the northwest of Losade Archipelago within Milne Bay Province. Misima is mountainous, densely forested, has an area of about 202.5 square kilometers, and the island is within the Samarai Moroa district. Buagoya is a very small place located on the southeast corner of the island and is the district capital for the Losades. Misima has a population of approximately 14,000. To get to Misima, it is either by Airlines PNG or by boat to Buagoya Harbour. The wharf is used to load and unload local trade boats and sailing canoes, which moves supplies to the outer islands in the region. The island is made up of the following villages: Hinauta, Boyou, Guleva, Bagilina, Liak, Siagara, and Ewus on the eastern north coast, reachable by road from Buagoya. On the western north coast, Gulewa and Evana, and Buagwa, Gaibobo, and Alhoga on the south coast. This peaceful island once operated a gold mine worth multi-millions of kina. The now forgotten mine pit is located on the southeast end of the island, 7 kilometers from the district headquarters. The mine back then was managed by Placer-Doom Asia Pacific on behalf of Misima Mines Limited. The mine's production began way back in July 1989, employing 645 PNG citizens and 72 non-PNG citizens. The recent visit to Misima Island for the landowner entitlement payouts was to see what was left after the closure of the mine 17 years ago. According to the Placer-Doom Asia Pacific Misima Mine Sustainability Report, the Misima Mine's objective was to leave behind a better future for the local community. As quoted from the report, "For us, this means leaving a better future for the Misiman people in terms of health, education, housing, and quality of life, and to evolve the capacity of the government and community to plan and manage future activities." Well, this was what the Misima Mine Sustainability Report stated. But let's hear what the Misima people had to say in an interview that was conducted by Anthony Singut about their lives after the closure of the mine and the government services they have received so far, starting with the history of the mine according to the landowner's point of view.
Approximately 200 kilometers east of the mainland of Papua New Guinea lies what used to be the Misima open pit gold-silver mine. Now the Tonawak pit that supplies 300 kilowatts of power to the people of Misima Island.
Oh, well, before mine came, we were doing fishing. We were enjoying our own life, what village life do, we go gardening and we come in, and that's our life, We live with our culture and traditional way, before mine coming of the mine. Although, many, governments, they give us, funds like developing cocoa, coconut, growing all those. But we still live traditional life. The copra was the main income for village people, and also cocoa and coffee. That was, long time, and government was encouraging people, to live their life in the village. Oh, when Misima mine came during construction period, it changed the life. Our society changed. We see that big machine coming, coming into the island. And especially when, like at Narian and Gaibo, where landowners pit area, the mine came, offload their old equipment down at the government wharf here. And the big ship come in and then offload all the equipments. And they all moved down to Nari and Gaibobo mountain, they start digging. But what left on the island was, for example, like our social life that infected is snail. Snail started at the warp here, and it spread out in all around Mishima villages. So it's a social impact. The small snail. We never had that before. But when the coming of the mine, that's the first thing mine created in our whole social life, we should say, problem that we face. Snail affect our gardens. What we do, it spread out to SML villages, went out of SML. Even people take it, they get their bait, they go to the islands, and it grows also in Paneti and other islands. And that's the impact, of social impact that we see, problem that the mine, came in. And that's the one that I should mention as it changed, our culture changed, We used to be like, traditional, fishing, and now we changed. We come here now, we have money. It's a lot of money. And people come, Mishima mine, workers, they come through, we get royalty money, and then compensation, where our, coconut trees or trees cut down in our garden, we get compensation for it, royalty money. And Mishima changed into our life changed into now wealth in dim way, like European live in money, more money for Mishima people.
The actual operation of the project was carried out by Mishima Mines Limited. That was to do with the gold and silver. Mishima Mines was operating under Plaza Dome or Plaza Pacific at the time. Yeah. Up until now, the major land-owning groups that were actually identified in the special mining lease area were about 8 major clan land groups that own customary land within the mining lease area. Yeah. So you have the special mining lease area that covered villages that is just immediately outside the pit, where you have villages, 8 main villages, starting from Eaus, Narayangai Bobo, and you get to Kauboga, Boyo, Siagara, and Gulawa. Those are the major landowners from outside the mining lease. The landowners and the provincial government and the national government signed the Memorandum of Agreement in 1990, and under the agreement it was provided that the state gave that equity, and that was part of the state options that the options that was taken up by the landowners to invest part of their money with Mineral Resources Development Company. Part of it was paid to them as their investment in their future generation trust. So the state equity was actually came in the form of cash, and part of the money that was paid to MRDC, which was originally the Oregon shares, that was eventually taken up by Oil States Limited. So MRDC has taken care of their shares.
After the closure of the mine, the locals did face a huge challenge which they have borne with for more than 15 years. Here is what the elders of the Missimans had to say with regard to the issues faced by the people.
The state and the provincial government and the national government have come together to plan for the actual close down of the mine, because that's been part of the ruling that when you open a mine, you also legislate to close it. So that's how Mishima Mines was decided that when you close down, at least you put in a plan together, which is called Sustainability Plan 2003-2010. So the mine was closed according to the issues that were raised and covered under the close as a sustainability plan. The issues that were covered under the closure plan were raised by the stakeholders, including the landowners, who actually come together and said, what are the issues do we look at in terms of health, education, infrastructure, and this was done so that it is covered under the the closure plan itself, and there's two parts of it. One is the biophysical and the environment. The other one is socio-economic side of it. So that's, the socio-economic side was also covered by the committee to make sure that when Missima Mine actually closed down, there is infrastructure that has been put in place must be addressed by way of funding from the state to make sure that the plan is actually covered.
You know, looking at the dispute itself, two associations were put together, and where digging of the land itself is in Nariangai Bobo land, and there's a special mining list there too, Watinona and Awalamana. And I believe that the dispute came up out of that, you know, where wealth benefiting, you know. And because before the mine, it signed that MOA. MOA, many of us believe it's a grace of MOA. MOA is a grace. Some of us, our land is not being dug, but because we belong to people of Mishima, and then mining industry come in, and then we also benefit. And royalty money was purposely taken, given to other people as well. And then this money came in. That's where, you know, like royalty and equity.
The dispute between the different, you know, sections of landowners within the existing SML was or were over the equity benefits that paid to the landowners out of the state 20% equity, in which 5% of that was acquired by the landowners. That is the issue that was disputed, and the dispute started a long time ago, about 17 years ago, and I was involved in that. So in fact, I was a, you know, individual figure that was, you know, outstanding in the dispute between the disputing parties. And the parties were the various, you know, SML landowners who were disputing among themselves over the ownership of that equity benefit.
You're watching Resource PNG. After the break, we hear what the landowners of Missima Island have to say with regard to the issues faced. Welcome back. You're watching Resource PNG. We'll continue on with the story where we left, and this is to do with the Missima mine after its closure. Like many other provinces and districts in Papua New Guinea, Missima also has its share of law and order problems.
Well, I'm also a magistrate here, anyway, so I deal with you know, local people problems after, you know, each week. The impact that we're talking about of you know, social impact. Well, as you can see, I have no you know, figure to justify, but I handle the young people's issues, you know, the social issues that they resort to so-called homebrew or JJ, or in Missima we call it, hey, Orikisima, JJ, or JJ problem here, young people. And what is the reason for resorting to that is there is no source of income and employment whereby they can be able to earn money to buy more better, you know, alcohol, beer from the local shops or suppliers rather than resorting to JJ. Another social impact here is marriage breakdown, and then I handle a lot of that, and that is, again, I see clearly is that when Missima Mine was around, I tell you what, there was a lot of money here, and young people were able to, you know, work there, earn money, and buy beer. But when the mine goes, the income per capita here on the island, especially within the existing SMLs, you know, drastically drop. You know, some people say from around 800 to less than 300 kina per capita. That's a very big drop. That is why we have that mine closure plan. It should have been the plan of the people, whereby it can contain more sustainable economic development that will create employment, such as agriculture, fisheries, tourism, business development, that's what I mean, so that we can be able to retrieve. In the old, as I said earlier on, in the old MOA, there was a clause in there for business development. I think in the MOA it says that the landowners should enjoy the benefit of MOA, that's $500,000 a year, that's purposely for business development, sustainable economic development, and that has not been enjoyed, and that's one of the areas that we should have been, picked up in the mine closure plan, whereby we can be able to create, employment for our young people through tourism or fisheries, agriculture, and then we can be able to maintain and increase the income per capita of people.
Learning from the past experience, the people of Misima have now planned to move forward in sustainably managing what little resources that have been allocated to the district.
Well, this money that we're gonna get is equity, and equity, to my thinking, is something equitable return to people. What people face in social impact, or what. And it's a profit of Misima Mine been working here. And it has to go to not only landowners, but it must cover every, population of villages. And then whatever social impact that they have, like before when mine was here, a lot of coming of workers, and it creates a lot of dust, and old people get sick, and social problem where money, and a lot of divorces, and a lot of young girls pregnant, and our water is no good. And this is sort of, we can get and improve our village life now, that, and make business if possible out of the benefits. Because we believe that investment, like in old sets, the dividend, it will still be coming, and which is good thing that we believe it's. Well, the one that we get through other faction groups and all this, they should look into, like now we're looking at microfinance, we're looking at bank, put in, so that if the money is big, when this LNG coming up, we should also tap, the question is, after mine gone, a lot of problem happen. We face no money, and we go to alluvial gold, and you were looking for, gold in 2004 and onward. There was no money after mine gone. Yeah. So we went into alluvial gold, and we were doing, go back again, do fishing. And so those life there, we already faced the consequences that it's a life that we should move forward and look at, how we can change our life, change our society, and that's the sort of thing that we're looking at. I believe that development change people, change society, change, and if we catch up with what is going on, we will live with that, changes taking place. I believe there was no proper planning. You see, the boat, like Misima Mine was like a boat, and when it capsized, and if there was a preparation down here, when it turned over, we should live on that preparation of what future of Misima. And that was nothing. We were thinking fishing company will replace, when Misima Mine gone, fishing company come. But because of the dispute within us, after mine, about 6 or 8 years, we've been disputing until this year, 2012, we come to compromise that we should get away from disputing among ourselves. The mine have a closer plan, but the closer plan, I believe, was not taken into, we became an association. And when they create, we believe, one association in mining company, Misima Mine, and there were two. And in consulting, in doing whatever mine closing, there was no consultant with MTSA and our local people, local level government. That's where the problem is. So it was taken away then, But if we come together, what the needs of the people and aspiration, then that's where we should come and know our view, then we will come up.
When you look at it, there was a fund to the tune of about 20 million supplied through the provincial government to address the issue. But unfortunately, some of the issues that were supposed to be covered were not addressed. So maybe the onus is on the government, the state and the provincial government have got to go back and look at readdressing the issue that was not covered, because 20 million kina to cover the infrastructure plus this, or say socio-economic aspect of the mine closure must be addressed, because we have a number of infrastructure that has been put in during the presence of the mining on the island that may go down if it's not addressed properly. Like currently we have the airport, we have the hospital, the high school, and even the roads, you see. So speaking as being one of the, a member of the mine closure committee, I still feel that we still have a lot, the state, the provincial government, and the landowners still have a lot to come up and say, okay, we haven't attended that, so that we can address them, because, I mean, if you don't do anything about the airport, it will go down. The hospital is a very good hospital. Let's do something about it. If the money is there, let's spend on it and make sure that it is addressed for the long-term benefit of the mission. The mine has actually gone, and it's up to the stakeholders on the island now to look at it from that angle. From looking at it personally, Antonia, Missima has been a role model as a whole, you know. When we came into being, we were the first in the country that we have been legislated to open it, and we have been legislated to close it. So that's a requirement under the law. When you open a mine these days, you go to legislate to open it, and when you close it, you go to legislate to incidentally, or unfortunately, put it that way, partly we as Missiman, being landowners or Missiman in general, I think playing a model, a role model, because of our situation, we missed out in some aspects on the mining with the current, some of the current projects in the country have capitalized on that because of our situation. They've come in here, visited us, and we said to them, please don't run into this, because we're coming through it, and make sure you get a better deal, because that's the only way. When you close the mine, you get something that you can fall back on. However, this is not to say that Missima Mine actually missed out. We still have, with the small group of people from the landowners and Missima, the Samarai Murua district itself, with a small electorate in here for local level government, I think we still have benefit in terms of our shares that is held by MRDC, and also our investment in the banks, like our future generation, that we can fall back on. But like I said, being a role model, it should be a learning area for the others to see that don't do the same mistake again, because we've gone through it and we felt that, you know, we're not hard done by, but I think we should have been at least treated in a way where we were the first in this part of the world to be an area where they discovered gold, and we were the first to go into the mining operation under the Papua New Guinea government, you know, and we were the first to close. But however way, when you look at it, the impact on it now, I think it's collectively the whole, all stakeholders would come up together, and then now that we've looked at sustainable part of it, we look down the post-mine of it as well. So we are not going to sit back and then say, we haven't done that, we haven't done that. At least we should all go together and then look ahead, you know. We never know. We probably look at other resources, you know, in this part here. We never know. We may have another mine come in and then do the exploration. So personally, that's how I see it. At least we should all be working together to make sure that issues that is supposed to be covered or addressed must be relooked at and then attended.
Currently, the artisanal mining has become a major source of income in the island, with an association, Misima Alluvial Gold Mining Association, starting in 2007. Other sources of income, especially for the people on the north coast, are cash crops of coconut, copra, and cocoa. A commercial fisheries project has been proposed, and it's still yet to get there. While the Misimans look to improving the quality of lives on the island, what does the rest of Papua New Guinea learn from this?
Being a role model, it should be a learning area for the others to see that don't do the same mistake again, because we've gone through it and we felt that we're not hard done by, but I think we should have been at least treated in a way where we were the first in this part of the world to be an area where they discovered gold, and we were the first to go into the mining operation under the Papua New Guinea government, and we were the first to close. But however way, when you look at it, the impact on it now, I think it's collectively all stakeholders should come up together, and then now that we've looked at sustainable part of it, we look down the post-mine of it as well. So we are not going to sit back and then say, we haven't done that, we haven't done that. At least we should all go together and then look ahead. We never know. We probably look at other resources, in this part here. We never know. We may have another mine come in and then do the exploration. So personally, that's how I see it. At least we should all be working together to make sure that issues that is supposed to be covered or addressed must be relooked at and then attended.
Stay with us. After the break, we have the Managing Director of Okteri Mine Limited. Thank you for staying with us on Resource PNG. In this particular segment, Antonia Singo talks to the Managing Director of Okteri Mine Limited, Mr. Nigel Parker. Here he discusses about the environmental management that OTML is taking.
Hello, Mr. Parker. Thank you for making time to join us on the show.
You're welcome, Antonia, and welcome to you and your crew to Taboobal in one of the best parts of Papua New Guinea, so welcome.
Thank you. To start off, can you tell us about environmental management practices that OTML is engaged in, such as riverine management?
Good. Oh, thank you, Antonia. This is a critical area of OTML's operation, is the environmental management, given a lot of the past history of OTML, but we remain resolute in our concern about the health of the communities that are impacted by OTML, and of course impact on the environment. So this is paramount in everything we do in OTML, even to the point of mine life extension. It's all about if we do extend the mine for another 7 to 10 years, what impact will it have on the communities, both financially, economically and day-to-day welfare, and of course on the environment itself, and ensuring that we do not add to the impact of the riverine system that the mine has had in past years. So to do that, of course, we have our own OTML scientific group, highly skilled scientists, and we supplement that with consultant scientists from around the world. And in fact, most of these consultants that we do use have been with us for a long, long time. So there's 30 years of history in the system, the riverine system here, that our scientists have that access to. And we build on that database constantly. So we're continuing, as we learn something, we add to that database and we add to the mitigation programs that are needed to adjust to what we're doing. So what we do in the environmental management in this riverine system is it's dynamic. It's not static. There's no textbook that says this is what you do. It's a learning process, it's an experimental process, and we sample constantly. So the water chemistry, the impacts on the dieback areas It's a constant monitoring program that we do, and we keep that data. So data builds up every year. So it gives us that tremendous knowledge on how we can deal with issues as and when they arise. So we meet our commitments to the state and to the communities, our obligations. We have unequivocally, we commit to that, and we mitigate everything that we can possibly do to mitigate the impact on the river system. And monitor the source of that change. So the data that we're building up gives us very good solid information that we can implement programs to get this, keep this mine going and lessen the impact on the communities. We have done many things like lower the cut-off grades. We add limestone to the water to adjust the chemistry of the water from time to time. And we put in a major $400 million investment into a plant that extracts sulphur from our mine tailings, and that's all buried subaquously down in Bigay in big pits. So it's all about mitigating the impact on the environment and on the river system, and more importantly on the lives of the people that are impacted by that. BHP did start a big dredging program in Bigay back in 1998. And we continue that. It costs something like $45 million a year to continue. And each year we dredge something like 10 million cubic metres of sediment out of the Bigay river slot. And that's placed in big stockpiles on the banks, which we are now in the process of revegetating. So to do that, we have a major nursery down at Bigay that has tens of thousands of seedlings down there. They're all local type trees. And that program is to revegetate all of these big hills that we're building down there from the sediment of the river system. So it's all about mitigating any further damage further down the river system. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Can you explain further on the mine area rehabilitation plan?
Okay, well, whenever the mine does close, we are legally obligated to rehabilitate the mine area and all of our footprint. So where we have had our foot on parts of the land, it's our obligation to rehabilitate that. The Bigay nursery, of course, is part of that as well, because we are growing seedlings that can be planted in areas that we have deforested in the past, of course, as well. So it's a long drawn-out process. It's a legal compliance process. It's a legal act that requires us to do a lot of things, and we actually have a mine closure plan that I think we're on to our 5th mine closure plan now, that we submitted the last one in 2009, that sets out a very detailed process of what we've got to do when we actually do close the mine. And it's all about being safe, doing everything safe, sustainable, and when we leave this area, when we leave our footprint, that the environment is safe, stable, and there's a sustainable land use post-closure. So it's all about fixing things up. And we've already started a lot of that with our scrap program that we have in place, where we're now taking scrap steel out of this area. All of our electronics, computers, etc., we do not bury them. They are containerised, they're taken out of this area into Australia or somewhere else where they actually process them to take gold and valuable metals out of them. We took all the PCBs out of our transformers 3 years ago. They were exported to Australia for destruction. So we've already started the process, but there's a more formal process that happens when the mine is physically closed. When that is, I don't know, but we're sort of structured very much to plan that, and as part of our legislation, the government's involved with it. And so there's a structured plan for each area, each footprint, where our foot touches, there's a plan for each of those areas to rehabilitate. Some will be more difficult than others. But the objective, of course, is to release the land back to the traditional landowners as best as possible as we can. And we've identified outcomes to do that, and they've been agreed with the communities. So as part of this mine closure plan and the rehabilitation, it's all about agreeing with the communities, working with the communities to ensure that they are comfortable that what we're proposing to do meets their requirements and meets the requirements of their future generations, right? So we've got about 150 contaminated sites, what we call contaminated, It's not in the sense that, you know, there's dirty oil and chemicals in the soil, but it's a site that has been disturbed from its natural state. Forests have been cut out, the land's compacted, traditional tracks have disappeared, etc., etc. So it's very much to look at restoring and rehabilitating those areas. The communities are also very well aware of the costs and all other associated activities that will need to happen with rehabilitation, because quite often it might disturb the local landowner traditional ways of life if you've got to bring bulldozers in to rip up areas that for the last generation have had use of, right? Very planned, consultation with the communities is paramount in what we do. It is costed. We have a financial assurance fund that is located in Jersey, in the Channel Islands, near England. That currently has about $222 million in that fund. It can't be touched except on mine closure, and it's a combination between the state and OTML agreeing and the landowners as to this has got to be done, this is what this cost us for. So in that rehabilitation plan, the mine closure plan, it's very well set out what we are going to do, what the cost to do that is. And as part of that, we have the river monitoring system. We are not at all obliged to monitor the river after the mine closes here, but because our social conscience dictates to us that it is morally and ethically correct that the company does monitor the river system post-mine closure, and that's for a period of 30 years that we've set in our mine closure plan. And there's $34 million, I think, in today's dollars, set aside for that program. So we will continue to have scientists here monitoring the river system as we do now.
We'll take a quick break from here, but don't go away, because after the break, Mr. Nigel Parker talks to us about the mine rehabilitation plan. Welcome back. Let's join Antonia Singut with Mr. Nigel Parker.
Mr. Parker, you mentioned earlier that consultation with the community is paramount. Can you discuss OTML's relations with the landowners?
We have a very strong relationship with our landowners, and when we talk about our landowners, it's not just the landowner, the mine villages here. Oktedi touches every aspect of the Western Province, essentially, from Tabubu right down through to Daru. And we have a very strong community relations department here. I would venture to say it's probably the strongest and most capable in Papua New Guinea in dealing with community and community issues. We've been at this for 30 years. So you don't find the problems here that you do in other parts of Papua New Guinea in dealing with landowners. And a lot of that is because of the community relations group that we do have. You know, they're highly skilled, highly committed Papua New Guineans that know how to deal with issues in a Papua New Guinean way. And I'm very conscious of this because I'm not of your culture, and it's difficult for me to understand the subtleties of the relationships required to deal effectively with our communities. But I certainly have an appreciation of that, and I observe our people, and they are very, very skilled at this. And you've only got to see the harmony that we have within our communities, right from here right down through to Daru. I visit the communities here up and down the river system, and I'm always welcome. And I think that says a lot in the sense that our relationships are very good with our landowner groups and with the mine affected groups as well. Around Tabubu here, there's 10 mine villages, and we are working at the moment to work with them to develop their human asset, because the kids are not getting adequate education in the sense that they can go forward into future generations to manage the wealth of the communities. And that's a big project that we have started this year, that we're working with MRDC, with the Landowner Royalty Trust here, to engage in developing the schools. And we've actually done that. We've started that with the high schools here. The high school has been rehabilitated, the government school. We are doing that, but the government will be paying for that. We're also, in conjunction with PNGSDP, Sustainable Development Program, we will be building new school buildings for the elementary school classrooms. There'll be 6 of those, and also year 11 and 12 in the high school. We'll be bringing them into Booble. A lot of that is to get the grassroots of the community, get the kids starting in education to develop the human asset of this area. OTML itself, we have 956 children in boarding schools throughout Papua New Guinea. That's a very big cost to this company. It's disruptive to family life. So our view is we invest in the classrooms here, we invest in the teacher accommodations, and we bring those kids back into their family life. Because a lot of those kids are actually local kids as well. So bringing those families back together is, I think, is a big thing in supporting the landowner groups here in the country. So that's progressing very well, but it's an ongoing process in dealing with our landowners, because it's a dynamic environment, and there's no textbook to it. As situations arise, we deal with it. We deal with it with compassion and with sensitivity, bearing in mind, of course, a lot of our local people, they're quite simple people. It's not being derogatory, but they are simple people in the sense that they're not worldly wise, and we have to understand their problems and deal with them in a very sensitive and compassionate way. We also, in dealing with our local people, we've got a lot of health issues here, in more lifestyle issues, because physiologically our local community are not aligned to this old Australian style diet that Papua New Guinea seems to have embraced with a passion, fatty lamb chops and lamb flaps, etc., etc. So we have a lot of lifestyle issues here, obesity, sugar diabetes, HIV, AIDS problems, unfortunately. And we've taken a very proactive step with our hospital, because the hospital here is OTML's hospital. We fund it with support from the provincial government, the Florida provincial government, but it's probably one of the, probably is the best hospital in Papua New Guinea, in the sense that facilities are very good. We always have drugs, we have X-ray film, we have X-ray feeds, etc., and a very good medical staff. We have just passed that management of the hospital over to Divine Word University. So Divine Word University now managing the hospital on behalf of OTML. And part of that strategy is to develop the hospital as a teaching arm for Divine Word University. So Divine Word will be using this hospital for their rural science programs to develop, train Papua New Guineans for rural health services and so forth. So it's a very big plus here. We will have Papua New Guinean students, medical students here, nurses, doctors, and they will pass from the best hospital facility out into the regional areas of Papua New Guinea. So we're very, very positive that the local community is very, very supportive of that process, because it gives them access to what we believe is world-class medical in Papua New Guinea terms, and of course has the opportunity to develop far, far further than what we are currently doing. So significantly, the local landowners participatory in development programs. We work very hard with them on our commitment to spin-off businesses, but we do that quite guardedly, because there's no God-given right that someone buys a truck, they can come to Octi and say, I've got a truck, I'm here for a job. We are taking, we believe, a very responsible approach to saying we want to encourage and work with and develop local landowner companies that have the potential to develop substantial balance sheets and substantial capabilities that can support their growth, not only within this area, but also they have the opportunity to go beyond this northern western province area into places like Hyunga and Daru, and even into Port Moresby and some of these other places. So it's about working with the communities to manage that development of those programs. And of course MRDC manages the biggest landowner company, the MRSM group here. We're looking to work very closely with MRDC and MRSM to develop that. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. That brings me to the end of my questions, unless there's anything else.
OTML, as your audience would probably be now aware, is 100% owned to the benefit of Papua New Guinea. And that occurred in January this time last year, when we bought Inmet's 18% shareholding out. So it's now Papua New Guinean, and we're very proud of that fact. and we want to leverage this company into other ventures in Papua New Guinea for the benefit of your country. We're also about to embark on selling our story, because we've been here 30 years and I liken it to being xenophobic. We've been hidden away up in the northern part of the remote Western Province, where nobody knows about us. And Treasury only knows about us when we pay big dividends, and all of a sudden money flows into the bank accounts. And we've been for far too long the whipping stick for NGOs and SPIV lawyers and anybody that wanted to make a big noise for themselves in the press. So we're starting to tell our story, because it is a fabulous story. The community involvements we have here, the programs we have for the communities, the Octedi Development Foundation program that is now impacting the lives of the communities in the river impacted areas. And to that point, Antonio, I was just showing you a book that we're just about to launch.
Absolutely, it was this one, wasn't it?
Yes, it was this one here that some of our ladies here have put this book together. It's about Tuburbal and beyond. And it's a photographic contage of life in Tuburbal and beyond. So we're about to launch this book in Port Moresby middle of next month in March, which we'll have a big fanfare about as part of the OTML story. But we've also, the same ladies with the Small Beginnings group have also put together a calendar that is sold out just incredibly. It's just gone out the doors like you wouldn't believe. It's all about life here with the kids particularly in Tuburbal. So it's a fabulous story, Antonio, and I hope, I know you will be at the launch next March, in March this year, because this is just the start. And we're printing our 25-year anniversary book that's been printed now. We're preparing a 30-year anniversary book. But we're also embarking on reporting in our annual report now. We're going to produce a substantial report on corporate social responsibility. And this reporting is structured around the International Financial Corporation's corporate social responsibility principles. We will report in the G3 format. It is an NGO style issue, but it's reportable and it is measurable. And we're going to take a very front foot on telling the story of OTML, on how we do manage our corporate social responsibility, because we take corporate social responsibility very, very serious here. And every part of OTML is very supportive of this, and they're going to go out there and tell this story, because it is a fabulous story for OTML, it is a fabulous story for this region, for this area, and it is a fabulous story for Papua New Guinea. There is nothing like OTML here, and we're going to tell that story.
Well, that's something exciting to look forward to, Mr. Parker. Thank you so very much for your time.
You're welcome, and thank you and your crew for the time coming up here to Tuburbal.
And that was an interview conducted by Anthony Singot with Mr. Nigel Parker, the Managing Director of Octedi Mine Limited. After the break, we talked to the Managing Director of Marengo Mining Limited. Welcome back. In this interview, Michaelin talks to the Managing Director, Mr. Les Emery, and he discusses the focus of Marengo Mining Limited.
Good day, viewers, and welcome tonight to our program, Resource PNG. Tonight we have with us Les Emery, who is Managing Director of Marengo Mining Limited, here with us. Les, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, Michael. Pleasure.
Now, Les, Marengo Mining has been in Papua New Guinea for the last 7 years. With a focus on Yandra Copper Gold Moly project. Can you explain to us some of the highlights, or the highlights of you being a part of that project?
Sure. I guess 7 years ago we came to PNG looking for a project that was potentially world-class in a mining jurisdiction that was mining friendly, or a country that was mining friendly, and had opportunities. And we saw firstly we saw PNG as being that place, and we've adopted PNG, and I'd like to think that PNG's adopted Marengo. The project itself was a project that had been looked at some 40, 50 years ago by majors and then left alone. We saw it as a great opportunity to build on that work So for the last 7 years, Marengo has been able to maintain 100% ownership of that project, up until recently when the state indicated its intention to acquire a 30% interest, which we welcome. We think that's a great step forward. But we were very keen to develop a project that was in sympathy with the community and in sympathy with the environment. So we like to think that we're building a mine of the future, not a mine of the past.
Okay. Now, having said that, Marengo has gained a reputation of being a company with a strong sense of community. Can you explain to us what that means?
Yes, it's not just not something that we say without a lot of thought, a lot of heart. The company's view, my view, is that the project is in part of Papua New Guinea. Those people are the landowners. They've been there for many centuries, and it's up to us to assist them in building up their community, developing a mine, which is obviously a project which has to make a profit for our shareholders. But you can make profits for shareholders and still do the right thing by everybody. So we want to give that community a future. We want to give them the opportunities for better health, better education, and of course, major part of that is also employment. I think that we are moving through that process. We have a very high focus on community. Almost 1/3 of our staff in Papua New Guinea are involved in community or environment. So it's a very strong statement, I think, as we go forward.
Stay with us. After the break, we hear more from the Managing Director of Marengo Mining. Thank you for staying with us. In the second part of the interview with the Managing Director of Marengo Mining, Mr. Les Emery talks to us about the joint venture they have signed with the Chinese state firm.
Okay, Les, the company has pioneered a new style of joint venture with a Chinese state firm.
Yes.
Can you explain to us how this arrangement differs?
Thanks, Michael. And I think it's a very important part of what this project is about. Historically, over the last number of years, joint ventures have been formed between Western companies and Chinese organisations all over the world. And they normally take on a fairly conventional phase where the Chinese partners either buy into the project or buy into the company and in some cases take control. In our situation, we were looking for a position where we could maintain control of the asset. We were looking for somebody who would provide the finance for developing this project, and we're talking about a project which is somewhere in the 1.8 billion to $2 billion range, okay. And also looking for construction expertise. The deal that we've struck with China Non-Ferrous, or NFC as they're known, which is a major state-owned enterprise, is the first of its kind to be done in China in this form. It means that they take no equity interest in the project, they take no equity interest in the company at this point. They will provide us with a fixed price contract to construct the project. They will also provide the finance through the Chinese banking system. Okay. And that's a very key part of this whole deal. What they want is a supply and construct contract, and at the other end of this whole equation, they want the supply of copper and moly concentrate. So it's a win-win, and we're very pleased about the arrangements with NFC.
Okay. Les, thanks for that explanation. I guess the last question to ask really is, what is the timeline to take Marengo into production?
As with all miners, I guess we'd like to say tomorrow, but there is a process. This project, as you mentioned, we've been on this for 7 years. In the world of base metals, a decade to develop a mine is pretty common, and probably looking at about the same for the Yandara project. We will have our final full feasibility complete within the next few months. We will expect to have a EPC, or an engineering procurement construction contract, in place with our Chinese partner towards the end of this year.
Okay.
We'll be filing the applications for mining and environmental approvals, and all going well, we would expect this project coming on stream in 2016.
Okay, that's fantastic news. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
I think it's probably the thing that I would like to reinforce is Papua New Guinea as a destination. You know, I've been involved in projects around the world for many years, and to find a jurisdiction which is mining friendly and a community right across the country that realises the value of a resource industry. There are very few countries in the world that now make it as easy to develop a project, and I think, you know, hopefully I'm one of the ambassadors of the country when I talk about the benefits of Papua New Guinea to people all around the world.
Okay, Les, with that, thank you so much for taking the time to come in, and we hope to welcome you back again.
Thanks, Michael. My pleasure.
Thank you.
That's all we have for tonight on Resource PNG. If you have any comments, please email us on resourcepng@mtv.com.pg. Until the same time next week, good night and God bless.